Hello adventurers and welcome back to my channel. Today we are in Yellowstone and we are waking up to this view. Now it took me a little bit to get here, so this wasn't my backyard, but at the same time, oh my goodness, look at this. It is so incredibly gorgeous and a wonderful way to start our trip here in Yellowstone today. So buckle up, it's about to be a fun ride. Now starting off at Kepler Falls, we're going to be going to see Old Faithful today. We're going to be seeing a few other interesting things, and these are things that you should all come out and see if you are in the Yellowstone area. I think you'll love today's adventures because we're going to just explore the park uniquely and have a good time, stop where we can, enjoy the views, and just overall soak in some cool information. Now, I'm going to be telling you some of the history of Yellowstone as we kind of proceed through our adventure today, but first let's get over to this other viewpoint and see what we can see from a little bit of a further distance. This little duck off point here is perfect for getting close without having people around, but at the same time, sometimes the overviews, they just give you that more expansive view. I think you can see now why the Kepler Cascade is amazing. Kepler Falls, or Kepler Cascade, is absolutely one of those quintessential Yellowstone waterfalls. There's another one as you come in on the south side of the park. However, they're doing some construction when I'm visiting, so make sure you check that one out also. It is spectacular. With that said, it's time to get in the van and move on down the road and see what we can discover next, because Yellowstone Day 2, or in this case, if you found this video first, Yellowstone Day 1, is gonna be epic. We have made it to the visitor center. Looks like we made it just in time. She's about to blow. As you can see by the crowds, this is the most popular thing in the entirety of the park. Now, inside the visitor center, they do have an estimated time for it to pop off. However, that does have a 10-minute sway in either direction. So if you happen to see that it's on the board, just come out early and then just be prepared to sit for a little bit. As you can see, it's super crowded out here from me walking up, but this is Old Faithful. It's absolutely incredible to see. I definitely encourage you guys to come out and check it out though. But this is just two different things that we've done here at Yellowstone. I'm gonna go in the visitor center and show you what this visitor center has to offer, and then we're gonna go and see what else we can get into today. But again, whenever I say it's crowded, it's super, super crowded. Every single parking lot is filled every single time that it basically goes off, and so get here early. There's a boardwalk trail that goes around from this area that we can actually take and see some more of the geothermal activity. And since all those people are filtering inside, why don't we go do that instead? And then we can always come back over here in just a minute. I think that's smart. Now there are a lot of these, so the more that you walk around, the more you find. There are two levels. So I started out on the lower, we're about to go to the upper. Super, super fun way to explore the park. Going through this little shady section, and then it's pretty much exposed from there. This upper portion is incredible. There are a lot of people down on the lower portion, so it gets pretty bottlenecked, but up here it's a little bit easier to move around. And there's a lot of activity up on top up here. This is insane. You can see the bright colors kind of flowing down, and again, those are bacteria that are able to survive. You can see bubbling and sizzling and steam, and it definitely smells very sulfuric. It's very egg-like up here, but it is so incredible. And from here you can also get a really great view of Old Faithful. So if you want to see Old Faithful from a different angle, come up here to watch it. That would be definitely a way to get away from the crowds. But I have a lot more to go, so this is so fun. I've never been up here before. This one's incredible. This is the Beehive Geyser, and it says this geyser is named for its 4-foot-high cone, and it resembles an old-fashioned beehive. Wow. It says that whenever it acts, it can go up to 200 feet in the air. Okay, if you have the opportunity to come to Yellowstone, take the upper loop. Last time that I was here, they were doing a little bit of work on the upper loop, so you could only do the lower loop. I am so happy that I did the upper loop. This is incredible, and these things are all huge, and there's so many vibrant colors, and just being able to see them fizzle up and see that activity is insane. Take the upper loop. Now, one last tip on this: if you're coming to see Old Faithful and you want a unique spot, you can also go up to an observation point which comes off of the trail up toward the upper level and shoots off. It's about half a mile with a 200-foot elevation gain, but you do get to see it from kind of like above. So you can see it from up here, you can see it from the upper loop, or you can see it down by the visitor center. And since it is a bucket list item for so many people, I wanted to give you guys all of those different options, because down at the bottom it can get a little bit crowded, but if you want to get to either one of these, you're gonna have to give yourself a little bit more of a swing in your time. So be prepared, but you can also take it in from different angles and see it from a variety of different perspectives. It's really, really cool. Okay, now we're gonna go into the visitor center now that we've taken a nice walk to see what's in here. Now that we've seen all the geothermal activity, let's go find out why it is here in Yellowstone and what that can tell us about the future of this park. We start out right here where we're comparing and contrasting the hydrothermal features throughout the park. There is a touch screen that we can follow along and learn about each and every one of these. And I think that it's pretty fascinating that you can tap on something like Morning Glory and it tells you that people vandalized it and they've removed over $100 in coins. That's why you see signs throughout the park saying, don't throw money in these guys. This is superheated water and it dissolves silica from rhyolite. The volcanic rock that underlies the Geyser Basin is considered geyserite. It's silica that's deposited as the water splashes from the geysers. So how does a geyser work though? It has an entire story below the surface that starts deep underground. Deep in the earth, the rock is heated by cooling magma that turns everything into the groundwater, and now it's super hot and it has to rise through all the fractures and it goes into different places. But there's a tight spot in the underground fracture that actually taps out into the surface, and as it is pressurized, steam builds and it forces the water out, which causes a geyser. Now, there is a huge difference between a geyser and a hot spring, both of which you should not be getting into if you are here at the park. And here we learn about the hot springs. In fact, at Mammoth Hot Spring, Grand Prismatic, and also the Morning Glory Pool, these are all hot springs, and they are formed as deep in the earth that the rock is heated by the cooling magma. The rock then transfers heat into the groundwater, and then the super hot water rises and then flows freely to the surface instead of having to go through a little crack. There's much less pressure in a hot spring. But they also have something here called steam vents, and as we're looking at each of these stories, you can see they're slightly different despite having similar conditions. This one, again, same thing, deep within the earth. It's heated, cooling magma pushes up into the groundwater, but there is only a small amount of water actually in this particular system, and it becomes steam, which then pressurizes out of the Earth's surface, but doesn't have an underlying pool and doesn't create a lot of water that goes upward. Again, it lets us know where we can find this, including the Steamboat Geyser in Norris Geyser Basin, the fountain paint pots in the lower geyser basin, and then also the lower geyser basin has the red spouter, and that's a mud pot steam vent. But let's get the global context as to where all of these kind of events happen. It says Yellowstone National Park protects the largest number of undisturbed hydrothermal features, and they're right here in this area, but you can see where some of the others in the world happen to be. They're in a little bit more remote areas, but you can find some other cool things in here as well, including that you can go to Steamboat Springs, Nevada, and you can see how the hydrothermal area in Steamboat Springs once had more than 20 geysers. But by the mid-1980s, all geyser activity had ceased, and geothermal drilling for commercial energy is likely causing this decline. Here you can also see the story of Old Faithful played out before you in an interactive display that allows you to move throughout the various pieces, and as you do, it reflects various changes as what's happening during each step of this process before finally it makes its way to the top. There's also a lot of cool information about the rocks and what exactly it takes to create these kinds of situations. In fact, places with heat abundant water and they're right under the ground are considered extremely rare. You can find these kinds of rocks here, rhyolite, quartz, and sinter. And it tells you a little bit more about each of them and why they are so popular here. Most of it has to do with the thermals. Now, Upper Geyser Basin, where we were just visiting, is the largest concentrations of geysers on Earth. And as you're looking around, you can see the map where we start off at Old Faithful and we move along those boardwalk trails where you can see all of the different things. But there's an additional offshoot that moves you over across the river and over to the Sand Basin area where you can see even more of these hydrothermal features. It is pretty cool to learn about this, but also another thing that I really like is if you are interested in learning whenever you are visiting, everything is translated into numerous languages, including Spanish and French, Dutch, and then Chinese. And I believe the reason why they do this is because this is one of the most popular parks in the United States for all countries to come to. So let's face it, between this and the Grand Canyon, these are the most popular parks for people internationally to visit because they are such unique spaces. And so that's why it is important for us to come here and visit and see these incredible things that are in our own backyard within a slightly larger driving distance, but still driving distance. And not to mention, there are lots of other options where you can come into the area via plane, you can take tours, they have all sorts of ways for you to get here. Just try it. It is absolutely incredible. I'm going to leave a little bit of this room for you guys. Just wanted to kind of touch on the things that you can learn here at the Old Faithful Visitor Center. As always, I encourage you to stop off. Also, they have some information. They can answer questions, and they have an auditorium that has a wonderful production that I watched last time. Take the time. It is definitely worth it. Just up the road, a short distance, there is Biscuit Basin, and I wanted to stop off here because it's kind of a little bit different than the upper basin, the way that they are kind of laid out on a boardwalk. However, you can also get to another trail at the back of this property, which goes up into the mountains and eventually takes you over to, I believe, another falls. But the last time I went up there, there was some bear activity, so it was a little interesting. But I am very excited to share this one with you. This is a gorgeous basin, and it's a great way to see the true colors because of the bright sun that's overhead. So this should be pretty fun. Now, while I'm out here, a cloud has moved over in front of the sun, so it blocks a little bit of the color, but it's still brilliant. And this entire loop that we're about to go on has tons of beautiful places to check out. I love Biscuit Basin so much. It's just a really nice way to casually go around where there are people here, but it's not quite as crowded feeling. The tops of these almost look like coral. It's really neat. Jewel Geyser might not be as big as Old Faithful, but that was pretty cool, just the same. And you get to be a little bit closer, and again, with less of the crowds. A very neat way to experience the geysers a little bit closer, still at a safe distance. Completed the loop, and I'm on my way back to the van to see what's next. We still have quite a bit of daylight to go, and there are a lot of stops that we can make, so we will figure out which ones aren't overcrowded and we will go there. Now, if you have a spot that you definitely want to check out in the park, you need to do that first, because otherwise it can get really hard to get to some of these, especially later in the day. So make sure that you plan your trip according to what you are prioritizing first. Of course, before we leave, I had to get one last look. The colors here are incredible. Until you see them in person, you have no idea how brilliant that they are, especially on a sunny day. If you come out here during various points when it's cloudy, you're going to see the park looking very different. Come on a sunny day and just wear extra sunscreen. It's fine. Now, as you can imagine, it's a very popular park like we talked about. So this is actually a line on the highway for Grand Prismatic, which is why I mentioned if you want to see that one, make it your first priority of the day. Otherwise, there's absolutely no parking. In fact, as we get closer and closer, you'll see people are even stacked up on the highway. Last time I was here, I lucked into a spot. I drove around and just somebody happened to pull out. That's the only reason I got to see it, because I didn't make it a priority. Now, since I had seen it, I wanted to see a few other things this time first, and so I wasn't really stressed if I made it or not. You can see Grand Prismatic by either walking around on the boardwalks, or you can go up to an overview where you can see all of the brilliant colors from the side of this mountain, and it is absolutely awesome. See all that? That is all people trying to find parking. Yep, it gets chaotic here. There are literally hundreds of pull-offs just like this one where you can see something beautiful and natural and take a stretch or get away from the grind, because roadways here could be a little bit interesting. Whenever you're driving along, a lot of times there's just this 2-lane road and there's not a lot of places that you can like go around people, and the speed limit's only 45. So even though you might be like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, sometimes you just need to take a step back and rest. And so these places are good for that. They're absolutely incredible. The views are just insane here at Yellowstone. But along with scenic stops, you can also find these little pull-offs that bring you to information kiosks. And you could spend an entire day just stopping off at these. In fact, this one talks about the Nez Perce War, and that goes right along with the Nez Perce Creek that we just were near. In fact, here, the journey through Yellowstone's history is told. See, long before this was a national park, or before we were able to visit it, there were all sorts of people who had been through this area. And those included the Native Americans, fur trappers and traders, and then explorers who were trying to chart this area and figure out what exactly it was. Yellowstone is the very first national park, and it was named this because it had a specific thing that nothing else had, and they found it to be interesting enough to delegate resources to come here and protect this space so no one could harm this space. But along the way, we learn about the first people who were here long before us, and I think that's incredible that we're able to learn these stories just on a random pull-off here in the park. but also at some of the visitor centers. Now here you can find a map that tells us where we are exactly, but also where some of the other forts in the region were. Fort Yellowstone was put in right at the top boundary of the park itself. But before it was, the journey had to begin, and on August 23rd, 1877, more than 600 men, women, and children camped in the woods near this very spot that we are in right here. See, this was part of the Nez Perce War. The Nez Perce people were proud people who had lived in this region for more than 2 decades, and they had endured all sorts of pressures to sign away their land and to get up out of here and go to a reservation. However, in 1877, the government decided that through a non-treaty way, they were basically going to force them into that position. So whenever we're here and we're getting to recreate in these spaces and enjoy them and see the beauty, think of the people who once were here and also that made their homes here and what it took for this to become a national park. We have some dark chapters of our history, but at the same time, we have brilliant chapters of history as well. And you have to have the good and the bad to have the entirety of the story. So I am appreciative that at roadside stops like this, they do tell you the actual history of the park, and they don't just sugarcoat it and say, oh my gosh, we wanted to protect the beautiful geysers. In all reality, that is part of the story. But the other part was that this was actually land that was inhabited before. But as you can imagine, there's a lot more to this story, and I hope to one day be able to share all of the stories of this park with you as I continuously return. But today, we're going to see a few more of the highlights of the park for you to plan your trip, and then we'll deep dive into some history in the near future. Okay, for this next turnout, we almost have this one to ourselves. I saw this one on the side of the road, and just like the pull-offs, I was like, ooh, what is that? Looks like a boardwalk. Sure enough, it is. In fact, this one is ADA friendly. It's a boardwalk that just goes out into the field where sometimes you can see some bison. I have had some pretty good luck with bison on this trip. I've seen them whenever I was in Teton. I also saw one rogue on the opposite side of the park. And whenever I came through this section, I saw some across the road. So maybe we'll be able to see them, I'm not sure. Oh wow, this is even cooler than I thought it would be. There's something right over here and something over there. Wow, wasn't expecting this. Definitely wasn't expecting this. This might be my new favorite. It might, because it's so quiet here in comparison to the others. There's only like one other family here, and it's right up against the mountains, and it is beautiful. But what I see below is incredible, and I can't wait to get there to show you guys. This is wow. Just wow. This thing is huge. Okay, so if you look in this direction, up at the top, that's where those two that I just showed you were. And then they kind of come down, and you can see where the water kind of filters into this bigger source, which I thought was just a lake. But in fact, this is also hydrothermal. It is insane. So it comes into this, and then you can see it just keeps on going and going. This thing is huge. And then there's more flowing in from this side, just opposite. We're standing here on the boardwalk, which you can see, and that drains in from that side also. Absolutely, unbelievably incredible. And then the views here are just magnificent. Wow. This one definitely is smaller in the grand picture of all of the different things because there's only like 3 here, but I definitely think this is one of my favorites just because of the sheer beauty. I mean, wow. Once again, this park has taken my breath away. Well, check that off of my list that I didn't know needed to be my bucket list. I can't even tell you what this one's called because there wasn't a sign. This is incredible though. It's just past the West Yellowstone entry point. It's one of the first turnouts, and wow. Okay, another great stop. This one is at Gibbon Falls. There are 2 trails. There's one to the upper and one to the lower overlook. So you park back here and then you just take this nice path. And along the way, one of the things that I do recall about this one is that a lot of this one was actually constructed by the CCC. In fact, a lot of the things that you see with the stonemasonry around the park have been constructed in the past by the CCC and maintained by the National Park Service. So that is a pretty cool fun fact, but we have some walking to do. There she is, but there's gonna be a better view than this. This one's kind of obstructed by the trees. Okay, that gets us started, but we have more trail to go, and all of this is ADA friendly, so this is another spot that everyone can stop off at. And I really appreciate that the big sites like this are in fact accessible to everyone. So you can all come out and see this beautiful place. Oh my goodness, it is incredible. Not even halfway there, and wow, this is amazing. I love this view. But we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. Another view and we're still not even there. This is incredible. Something that I'm noticing though, down here there's a log jam. I wonder if that's from the beavers or if it's from things that have washed down. Because you can see up at the top, there's something similar. See up there at the top, there's a whole bunch of old logs and trees. And then down here as well. This does look like it's from washdown. Interesting. But we have more to go. We're gonna go all the way down to where those ladies are down there. And then it kind of is just like a dead end with some viewpoints. I don't know what all we're gonna be able to see, so let's go and check it out. Being able to walk around in so many different places in a single park and see so many varying things is not something you can do at every park. Most parks have a central focus on like maybe one or two things, and then they have the outdoor beauty, which is really nice, but at the same time being able to see the hydrothermal, being able to see the animals, being able to see the beautiful waterfalls, being able to take hikes, so many hikes. There are so many things that you can do here, and with each one of those you have educational resources at various points in the park, which makes this pretty unique. So not only is it the first park, but it's also one of the more unique parks. Oh wow, another incredible view. Again, not quite to the end, but incredible just the same. Right down here though, there is a sign. Let's go find out what the sign has to say. Okay, this tells us everything we need to know about Gibbon Falls, and it says that we're cascading to the caldera. So from that area and down into this area where the traffic is coming this way, that is all to the caldera. However, everything north actually takes us away from the caldera. But volcanic history surrounds everything here, and when Yellowstone erupted 640,000 years ago, untold volumes of volcanic ash spewed forward. And you can see them on these areas right here, which are in front of us. So the mountainside of each side of where the waterfall is, and then also on the mountainside itself, volcanic matter is found all in that area. And then right here you can see where we are at the top part of the caldera. Yellowstone Lake is the lowest portion of the caldera in this direction, and then the rim just surrounds in the rocky areas that kind of go into the valley where you find all of the hydrothermal energy outputting into all those geysers and steam vents and mud pots. On another note, it's just incredible just to see it as the nature that it is. The brain wrinkles are awesome, but just the visual, wow. Additionally, we learned that it plunges 84 feet from the very top to the very bottom, and then it goes down into the valley and it feeds into all the water sources that we see in that direction toward the caldera. That's why you stop and read the signs, guys. That's why. This thing is magnificent. It's majestic. It definitely brings you a sense of joy just to see how hard that water has to work to get there, and it just plummets and just keeps going. This place is an epic place to visit, but it definitely takes a little bit of time to navigate through, and you're driving a lot because things aren't walking distance from one another. So make sure that you allot plenty of time, get to the park early, and stay until the latest you possibly can to keep the brain wrinkles a-rolling. That is a pretty impressive steam vent. Wow. Now this is Beryl Springs, and Beryl Springs is quite loud. And the interesting thing about Beryl Springs is it can do a lot of cool stuff. Believe it or not, this spring right here is one of the hottest springs in the entire park. And I can feel it radiating the heat. But more so, I want to show you what it has done to all of the wood along the roadway path. Originally, this was brown. On the other side, you can see what it kind of looked like, but even that part is starting to get hot and do this now. That is insane. Normally, this guy runs between 188 and 192 degrees. And in 1959, they had an issue. They had an earthquake, and whenever they did, it greatly changed how this one reacted. And because of that, now it is loud, it is bold, and it is insane to see. Beryl back here is a prime example as to why you don't dip a toe in the water. It's almost boiling all the time, and with that comes a lot of danger. You can see what it did to that wood, and that's just from it sitting there. The wood, it's just catching the draft off of it, and it's turned all those wild colors. So you can only imagine how that would fare for an animal or a person, which is why they have the signs posted literally everywhere here. But again, just beyond the caldera, there's a few other interesting things, because the caldera does not control all of the hydrothermal activity. As we travel toward the northernmost entrance, we're gonna find some more really epic things, including one of the largest things in the park, the Mammoth Hot Spring area. And this is where the old fort used to be, so I'm up for it if you guys are. Let's go. Just a fun little turn off. This is awesome. Pretty epic, right? Pretty epic. Just to get to go through the boulders. I absolutely love that you can drive through little areas like this. There's lots of pull-offs in this area too, but this is so cool. Okay, we're about to go through the upper terrace drive-through. There's a drive-through here. So this allows you to get out of your car at various points and see various things. Okay, we've been driving around for a little bit, but there are stops everywhere, so I decided I'd check out one more that we can get out and go and actually look at. And I hope by showing you both sides of this that you can see that this is something that's accessible to everyone, but also that everyone can come and enjoy. So let's get to walking. There's just a few feet to the next stop right over here. There it is, right there. Because it's later in the day, the deer are a-moving. Oh, they're a-moving. I've seen a few now. So I'm just kind of going real slow and watching where I'm going, because they'll just walk out. And it's our responsibility to make sure we're the ones paying attention. So just trying to be a responsible tourist. Last stop of the day, I just wanted to stop in at the old Fort Yellowstone, which is now the northernmost entrance. It's been an incredible trip to Yellowstone, and I appreciate you guys for coming along with me, not only today, but also as I entered in from the east. I hope that you'll check out all the points, plus have some fun, pull off on those pull-offs, check out some of the hiking trails, and I'll be back. Don't worry, we'll talk more about the history and the cool hiking here next time when I'm here with a friend. Till next time, guys, remember we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. I'll see you later. Bye. This place was epic.